NASA has recently announced that it is time to shift greater attention towards Venus, following recent revelations about the possibility of life on the planet. A review of NASA's records from the 1960s reveals that, at that time, the agency referred to Venus as a planet from hell. In contrast, Mars was regarded as a more promising destination for exploration. Such severe descriptions of distant worlds were common during the intense years of the space race, a time when the Soviet Union was heavily involved in launching expensive missions to Venus, a planet that seemed nearly void of any chance of harboring life. Despite this, the Soviet space program didn't stop its Venera missions until the fall of the Soviet Union. Astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson has significantly contributed to our understanding of why the Soviets were so drawn to Venus. Join us as we take a closer look at the declassified photographs of Venus taken by the Soviet Union. The collapse of the Soviet Union was a defining moment for many reasons. Not only did it reshape the global political landscape, but it also concealed a plethora of secrets. The Soviet Union, notorious for its secrecy, was home to one of the most sophisticated intelligence agencies and was known for keeping quiet about possible encounters with extraterrestrial life. As a result, many secrets remained hidden within the former superpower. Before the United States took the lead in planetary exploration, the Soviet Union was already at the forefront of the space race. While NASA's space program experienced both successes and setbacks, the Soviets concentrated their efforts on Venus, the mysterious and inhospitable planet. In Russian, Venus is called Venera, which also became the name of the Soviet space missions that lasted from 1961 to 1983. This occurred during the same period when the United States was focused on its goal of reaching the moon. The Soviets made a strategic choice to focus their resources on Venus during the space race, an era when the costs and risks of space exploration were immense. Given the challenging conditions on Venus, it might seem surprising that the Soviets put so much emphasis on the planet. Were they considering Venus as a potential site for military operations or colonization? The precise motivations behind their interest in Venus are not entirely clear, especially since much of the Soviet Union's activities were shrouded in secrecy due to the ongoing Cold War. Most of what is known about their Venus missions comes from declassified or lost documents, and even then, pinpointing the exact reasons for their relentless pursuit of Venus is difficult. The Soviets didn't just send one or two spacecraft to Venus. They launched 28 rockets targeting the planet, with 13 of those successfully entering Venus's atmosphere. Of those, 8 missions achieved successful landings. These ambitious efforts positioned the Soviet Union as a leader in space exploration. While the United States was a strong competitor, it focused more on satellite technology and infrastructure innovation, while the Soviets were more committed to exploring the potential for life on distant worlds. Although history books may not always highlight it, the Soviet space program was the first to send a probe into the atmosphere of another planet, the first to achieve a soft landing on another planet, and the first to return images and sound recordings from the surface of a distant world. Though these groundbreaking achievements are often overshadowed by the later American milestones, they were crucial steps in the history of space exploration. In 1992, following the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the Soviet Space Agency officially ceased to exist and was replaced by the Russian space agency, Roscosmos. Unfortunately, many historical records were lost or destroyed during this transition, leaving much about the Soviet space program still unknown. While we may never fully grasp why the Soviets dedicated so many missions to Venus, it's likely that their decision was driven more by cost-effectiveness than pure scientific curiosity. While the Soviet Union had a genuine interest in Venus, they were also trying to gather data on the planet's environmental conditions, including the presence of water, solar radiation, and other factors. Without these early missions, scientists would have had little insight into the extreme temperatures and dense atmosphere of Venus. Many cosmologists today argue that Venus is far too hostile to support life, with temperatures high enough to melt lead and an atmosphere thick with carbon dioxide. It's easy to dismiss the possibility of life on Venus, but doing so would overlook the important pioneering efforts of the Soviet space program. For the Soviets, Venus was a planet worth exploring, even if only as part of their broader aim to win the space race. The exploration of Mars, while still a consideration, was far more expensive, making Venus a more cost-effective target for their space program. The vast distance between Earth and other planets played a major role in determining where the Soviets chose to focus their resources. Venus, on average, is just 40 million kilometers from Earth, whereas Mars is about 250 million kilometers away. This huge gap in distance explains the significantly higher costs of Mars missions. Additionally, The United States' economic dominance allowed them to more easily afford Mars exploration, unlike the Soviets. Many reports indicate that Soviet missions to Venus were fraught with technical issues and were often unreliable. Some spacecraft were not designed to travel such vast distances between planets, leading to several instances where communication was lost. Given these hurdles, it's understandable that the Soviets chose to focus on Venus, a planet closer to Earth and offering a better chance of success. However, focusing solely on the technical difficulties overlooks the bigger picture of the Venera program. When the Soviets began launching missions to Venus, the United States was still focused on reaching the Moon. NASA's early attempts to explore Venus in the 1960s were plagued by failure, a phenomenon later known as the Venus curse. Each time NASA attempted a Venus mission, it ended in failure, while the Soviet Union saw this as an opportunity to gain a significant advantage in the space race. The Soviets accelerated their Venus exploration efforts, viewing the planet as a key objective in the competition for space supremacy. Despite the negative portrayal of Venus as a hellish world by the United States, this characterization did little to discourage the Soviet space program. The Soviets' primary goal was to demonstrate their technological superiority over the U.S. Though the Soviet Union's Venus missions aren't as widely recognized today, they were ambitious and ahead of their time. The Venera program marked the early stages of the space age. Starting in the 1950s, the Soviets developed the technology to send spacecraft to Venus, and over the following 3 decades, they launched a series of interplanetary probes. By the mid-1960s, the Soviet Union had advanced enough to launch Venera 3, the first spacecraft to enter Venus's atmosphere and make contact with its surface. This achievement escalated the space race between the two superpowers, with the Soviet program making steady progress despite technical challenges. Their ability to design and launch more advanced rockets allowed them to continue progressing, even as NASA faced difficulties with its own Venus missions. In the 1970s, the Soviets launched 2 major probes, Venera 4 and Venera 5, ushering in one of the most exciting decades in space exploration. These dual missions allowed the Soviets to gather valuable data about Venus's atmosphere and surface. The success of Venera 4 led to the creation of more advanced spacecraft, including Venera 5, which provided further insight into Venus's conditions. The 1970s marked the peak of the Soviet Union's Venera program, with Venera 7, launched in 1970, becoming the first spacecraft to transmit data from the surface of another planet, revealing crucial information about Venus's temperature and pressure. Later missions, such as Venera 13, took color panoramic images of the planet's surface, offering unprecedented insights into its geology. Despite some setbacks, the Venera missions were essential in advancing our understanding of Venus and space exploration as a whole. In the 1980s, the Venera 13 mission went even further, capturing detailed images of Venus's surface. By the time the Soviet Union ended its space operations in the early 1990s, the Venera program had achieved more than anyone could have expected. The legacy of these missions lives on today, as Roscosmos and NASA prepare for the upcoming joint Venera D mission, scheduled for the late 2020s or early 2030s. This mission will explore Venus's atmosphere, geology, and potential for past or present habitability. The Venera program paved the way for future exploration of Venus, Mars, and beyond, with their discoveries continuing to shape the future of space exploration. The Venera D mission, a collaboration between Roscosmos and NASA, marks an exciting new chapter in Venus exploration. Set to launch in the late 2020s or early 2030s, this mission will investigate the planet's atmosphere, geological history, and potential signs of life. Equipped with an orbiter, a lander, and possibly an inflatable structure, the spacecraft will explore Venus like never before. This mission underscores the lasting impact of the Soviet-era Venera program, one of the most ambitious space exploration projects in history. As we look to the future, the lessons learned from the Venera missions continue to guide planetary exploration. The technological advancements made by the Soviet space program, such as the development of durable materials able to withstand extreme temperatures and pressures, have been essential for subsequent missions to Venus, Mars, and other celestial bodies. These innovations laid the foundation for modern space exploration, continuing to inform mission planning, technological development, and operational strategies. The significance of the Venera program goes beyond its scientific and technological contributions. During the Cold War, the space race was not only a quest for scientific achievement but also a way to assert ideological dominance. The success of the Venera missions showcased the Soviet Union's technological prowess, serving as a powerful political statement. The global community closely followed these achievements, recognizing the Venera program as a pivotal moment in humanity's expanding understanding of the universe. Every success, such as Venera 7's successful landing in 1970, was not only a scientific breakthrough but also a statement of political strength. Despite the extreme conditions on Venus, the Soviet Union's persistence in overcoming technical obstacles led to valuable data about the planet's surface and atmosphere, furthering humanity's understanding of Venus and space. The conditions on Venus presented a significant challenge for the Soviet spacecraft. The extreme heat, intense atmospheric pressure, and highly corrosive sulfuric acid clouds made it incredibly difficult for the technology of the time to withstand the environment long enough to send back meaningful data. Yet, the determination and ingenuity of the Soviet engineers were key to overcoming these challenges. Despite the harsh environment, the Venera missions were able to collect invaluable data about Venus, shedding light on the planet's extreme conditions. The Venera spacecraft captured groundbreaking images of Venus's surface, offering humanity its first real look at a world previously shrouded in mystery. These photographs revealed a harsh and rugged landscape, vastly different from anything found on Earth. The images of Venus's surface were a monumental achievement in space exploration, proving that it was possible to gather valuable scientific information from a planet with such extreme conditions. The successful landing of Venera 7 in 1970, which transmitted the first data from the surface of another planet, was a milestone in human space exploration. While not all missions were successful, with some spacecraft failing to reach Venus or encountering malfunctions that prevented them from transmitting data, the Venera program's persistence paid off. Many technical issues arose, and some spacecraft simply couldn't survive the extreme conditions of Venus for long enough to complete their mission objectives. However, the Soviet space program continued to push forward, demonstrating an incredible level of resilience. These setbacks, rather than deterring them, only strengthened the resolve of the scientists and engineers involved. The Venera mission's contribution to our understanding of Venus was significant. The data they collected provided crucial insights into the planet's atmosphere, which is primarily composed of carbon dioxide, and the planet's surface conditions, which include volcanic plains and mountainous terrain. Later missions, like Venera 13 and Venera 14, delivered high-resolution panoramic images, offering further insights into Venus's geology and helping scientists to better understand its volcanic history. Perhaps the most groundbreaking achievement of the Venera program was the ability to capture images of Venus's surface, an endeavor that had never been done before. The success of these missions demonstrated that it was possible to overcome the technological barriers presented by Venus's hostile environment. The Venera mission set the stage for future exploration of the planet, allowing later missions to build upon the data and lessons learned from these early efforts. In addition to advancing scientific knowledge, the Venera program also played a key role in the Cold War-era space race between the United States and the Soviet Union. The success of these missions provided the Soviet Union with a significant geopolitical victory, helping to affirm their technological superiority at a time when competition with the U.S. was at its height. Each success of the Venera program, from Venera 7's soft landing to the first images of Venus's surface, sent a clear message that the Soviet Union was a major player in the space race. Despite the technological hurdles, the Venera missions demonstrated the potential for scientific advancement in planetary exploration. The Soviet Union's relentless drive to explore Venus, despite the overwhelming challenges, left a lasting legacy that continues to influence space exploration today. The technology developed during this program, including durable materials capable of surviving extreme conditions, laid the foundation for future missions to Venus and other planets in our solar system. The success of the Venera program also inspired future generations of scientists and engineers, showing that with determination and ingenuity, even the harshest environments could be explored. Today, the legacy of the Venera missions continues to shape how we approach the exploration of planets in our solar system. The scientific instruments and technologies developed during the Soviet missions remain foundational to modern space exploration. As NASA and Roscosmos look ahead to the upcoming Venera D mission, it's clear that the groundwork laid by the Venera program is still relevant. The mission will continue the work started by the Soviets, aiming to uncover more about Venus's atmosphere, surface, and potential for past or present habitability. The Venera D mission will build upon the data collected by earlier Soviet missions, using modern technology to gain a more comprehensive understanding of the planet. Looking further into the future, the lessons learned from the Venera missions will likely continue to inform future planetary exploration efforts, not only to Venus but to other distant worlds as well. The advancements in space technology and the data gathered by the Venera missions have provided invaluable information that has paved the way for future missions to planets with extreme environments. The impact of the Venera program reaches far beyond Venus, influencing how we design and implement space missions to other planets in our solar system and beyond. The Venera missions were not just a scientific achievement but also a symbol of human perseverance and the desire to explore the unknown. Despite the numerous challenges faced by the Soviet space program, the Venera missions proved that it was possible to explore even the most hostile worlds. Today, we stand on the shoulders of those who worked tirelessly on the Venera program, continuing to explore the mysteries of our solar system and beyond.